The luxury market was based on what some call hostility and others call exclusivity, depending on how you want to brand it. But we can see that ever since maybe 2023, 2024, things have been going downhill for many of the mainstay incumbent luxury brands. When we look at the LVMHs, the Kerings, and all the brands that fall under these large houses, the story is oftentimes that things have not been so good. Now, there's so many reasons for this that I have talked about at great length and will continue to talk about, I'm sure, at great length on this channel. But today I actually want to talk about those that are doing well and decode a major reason why I think that is. The luxury brands that are winning today are accessible and they are leaning heavily on their aspirational customer base. Two brands that come quickly to mind are Coach and Telfar. Now, these brands serve slightly different demographic groups, but I would say that there's a lot of psychographic overlap and that the strategies mirror each other. Telfar's main hype was 2020, but it's been able to maintain that there forward, and Coach is just peaking right about now. So I think that these are two good brands to look at and learn from. And to understand why some brands are winning, we first need to understand how this aura of exclusivity that built and gave rise to the luxury market flipped and turned into a feeling of hostility, or at least it became read this way by consumers. To analyze why the exclusivity that gave rise to the luxury market is now starting to be read as hostility, I want to take us into an academic space and talk a little bit about W.E.B. Du Bois and the theory of double consciousness. Now, let me introduce you to this, hopefully simply, or remind you of this simply without us going into an entire academic lecture, which I would love to do, but we won't today. The theory of double consciousness thinks about how spaces, situations, social circumstances make us feel welcome or unwelcome, and about the double consciousness that many people hold about their marginalized identities. Du Bois talks about the exhaustion that comes with existing in spaces that were designed with contempt for who you are. He particularly thinks and speaks about the Black community and racially marginalized communities, and thinks about how the entire country was built to privilege and cater to certain groups and depress and put down other groups, and how even when some of those policies were stripped away and society moved past some of those biases, it still shows up. It still shows up in our subconscious, and it can be very tiring to exist like this. Now, focusing this in on the luxury market, we can see that this is the perfect playground for this type of thing to thrive. When we think about exclusivity and groups that are designed for, the first thing that pops into my mind are luxury brands. Now, here we are in a contemporary era where the majority of people on the globe, and therefore the majority of potential buyers for any luxury brand, belong to some type of marginalized group. So are either female, a person of color, neurodivergent, queer. There are so many identities that do not fit into the standard that America, and then therefore the world trickling out from there, seems to be designed for. And people are becoming more and more aware of this. And so when we see brands who speak to a very unmet demand like Telfar or like modern day Coach, they absolutely boom. There are so many people who yearn for luxury but do not like the humiliation that can come with shopping traditional luxury brands. Now, no hate to them because they have beautiful products, but I think about Hermès as like the counter to a Telfar or to a Coach, where even if you have the money, you have to earn the right to buy a Birkin bag, right? This is a very controversial way to sell. It's worked for Hermès, but they've repelled almost as many people as they've attracted through that extreme exclusivity. And honestly, I think that the brands that are hurt the most by this are those that are neither here nor there. I suspect that Hermès is thriving in this because it went all the way in one direction. And when I think about branding, I always think that you want to go all in on the people who you want to serve and not worry about repelling the rest. Hermès did that. But there are a lot of brands who live in this messy middle where they're heavily dependent on aspirational buyers and those smaller purchases, but then still create this aura, this air of exclusivity, triggering that double consciousness that lives in many of our minds. And then you look at the Telfar, you look at the Coach who say, you are welcome here, that say this is luxury for everybody. And it's not necessarily just the price point. Yes, their price points are more doable for many people, but it's just the entire brand architecture. It's the spaces, it's the ads, it's all of the creatives coming out of the brand, it's the language and the copywriting. Everything about these two brands says that, hey, if you can save up and you can afford to buy into our brand, we want you here. And they reflect that back at you through the representation that you see through their models and their imagery and just the vibe that the brand gives off. Another brand that's coming to mind in this conversation is Aimé Leon Dore. Their price point is quite high, though you can find some items that are under a couple $100s there. But even though they have exclusivity down to a science, they have like a line outside, they let people in small groups at a time. The store inside was designed for the queue outside, if that makes sense. When you step in, it feels intimate, it feels cozy. You can get a coffee there, you can come and just browse and hang out. It's just a lovely place to be, whether or not you're actually buying into the product. So they've created community through their aesthetic and through the entire world that they've built around their brand, therefore driving sales and just occupying so much share of mind for their consumer groups. My encouragement is that creating respite from hostility isn't just an ethical move, but it's actually just a great marketing strategy and good business, as many inclusivity initiatives are. If you are curious about building a brand that feels like a respite while still occupying a luxury positioning and getting all of the financial and creative benefits that comes from being in this part of the market, I would love to have a conversation with you. My name's Tosin, and I'm the founding principal of Atelier Oluwatosin. This is the exact type of work we do. We do strategy, and then we implement it into both digital and spatial design. Reach out, let's talk about what it would look like to work together. I'll talk to you very soon. Take good care.